absolutely. And that's why it supports self-evaluation. And I think whilst we talk about the frustrations around test scores and things like that, and certainly they're not applicable in some schools, are they, in settings that we work with? So I love the fact that the focus is really on the teaching and learning and the outcomes in books in that sense, because I think that is truer. So, that's the genuine kind of indicator of progress in that sense, David. So I do think that today, we're going to look at some really good hacks and quick ways, and there'll be some moments hopefully where the penny drops and you think, right, this is a possibility, because there's so many different ways we can use that iPad or tablet to be able to self-evaluate. And that self-evaluation, have it, feeling really secure when you leave the school each day about standards in each area. What does that look like? Well, we're talking about
Mm.
what it looks like in the books, the progress, the achievement, some of the outcomes that we're capturing there today, as well as doing those drop-ins and those snapshots that we do with Nautilus too. So down here you can see we've got a little agenda. We're going to fly through it. So preparation, we'll take a little look at the beginning. Really, just if you are using the trial, we'll just sort of signpost that for you so you know what to do. Log into the system and then think about setting up and performing the book study. But before we do that, we'll think about how we can prepare that, and there's a couple of things there I would consider really about setting that up, just from a logistics sort of side of things. And also the pressures. We know at this time of year, there's a pressure point there, isn't there? So it's about making sure that we can do this in a very quick and efficient way, hence the little matrix there on the right. So we're going to look at the feedback. So let's validate this process by making sure that the feedback impacts, because if that's an afterthought and the feedback is not good, then ultimately, we're kind of pulling the rug out, and it's not credible, or it's not making a difference. So yes, we want to capture, but we also want to be able to give recognition to those teachers and to say, we love this, thank you very much, and so on. We're going to look at the strategic reporting, and how that builds up into a bigger picture. And like I say, self-evaluation, how we can use filters, use the dashboard, and start to learn more about that process, what our subjects look like. Um, so we'll take a little look at the dashboard analysis. Then we'll think about the gallery to spotlight great learning. So we talked about being able to take pictures. And I think this is the thing, David, we quite often keep a little stash of books somewhere just in case, for like evidence sake, which is not really for school improvement purposes. But we also, we know that there's some good stuff in these books, so we sort of put them to one side, and then by the time it gets to February, really they're not serving any kind of a purpose. So we want to be able to take pictures. I mean, at this time of year, of the progress and some of the outcomes, populate the gallery, and then start in September by saying to the staff, this is how good it could be by July. So it's a little bit like that moderation thing where we used to have those year 6 pieces of writing that we used to refer to
Mm.
if we wanted to know what the expected standard looked like. Here we can create an interactive database where we can just say, there you go, there's a sample to be able to kind of use. And how we can use that to inform, I mean, look at the progression through the curriculum and so on. There's so many different ways to use that gallery, isn't there? We'll think a little bit, just as we get towards the end, about the fact that you can edit and create your own content on Nautilus. We know that you know your school better than we do. So obviously, if you want to edit, amend, tweak the book studies that are in the system, you can do that as well, or create your own content too. And then finish with further support. So in particular, if you're not a Nautilus school, what you can, how you can work with us if you need any further support, how you can access some of the free content as well. I think that's helpful for anybody that comes here today, such as the work study that we're going to signpost, which is posted on Facebook, and you can download and import to your system. So for that's for things like painting and art and things like that, and evaluating those areas of the curriculum. So it's a pretty kind of frantic sort of session, I think, David. We're gonna cover an awful lot of things, and I'm going to pop up across to my screen share so that we can just get moving and share things. But do you think I've covered all corners in relation to kind of just sharing this really, and hopefully hooking people in so that they can see the benefits, not to mention the fact that we've got the usual accurate and efficient matrix there, and we're looking to hit the sweet spot.
That's right. I think the two words we keep coming back to in everything we do, David, is the accuracy and efficiency. And we always talk, don't we, about time. in
Yep.
school and the value of time, and how after we step back and we work with so many schools now, how we see that schools, they don't value the time.
Mm.
It's a very holistic approach is education, and really that ruthlessness of what time means.
Yep.
In terms of being able to save it, to be able to be as efficient as possible. How much things cost in terms of time. We as teachers, we're generous in our time, and our kind of first thought is always to give, to give, and to give. But
Mm.
actually, giving, there's a cost, isn't there? And I think that's one thing we keep coming back to: is
Yeah.
anything we can do regarding saving time is great for well-being, and it's great for retention and things, but also it's great for money and the financial side of things, because time at the end of the day is money, isn't it? And that's one thing
Yeah.
we've found working with so many schools.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that time element is really critical. So thinking about in September in particular, how you can hit the ground running and make sure that your leadership is sustainable and healthy. And I think that's a really important point. That's certainly an underlying kind of driver of the work that we've done and how we're supporting schools. So I've just popped the screen on, and here you can see, and this is really just a signpost of trial. So if you're not a Nautilus school and you want to have a go, click on the trial there, nautilus.education, pop in your details. It will send through an invite, check your spam or trash. If it doesn't land, you can then log into the system. We'll come back to this page and we'll take a little look at the community and so on and support as we end the session. Moving across to Nautilus. So once we've got our invite, or for those schools who are already Nautilus users, this will be familiar. We want to log into the system, and then we're just going to take a little moment really just to navigate really and think about what we can see and preparing our book study here. So just moving across, first of all, to the left-hand side. So the orange buttons, by the way, that's all the doing stuff, the capturing, the administration, assigning, and things like that. So we're going to obviously do that first by looking to create a learning, a book study. The blue buttons, that's the back end. So that's everything going into the system. So that's all of the pictures, all of the analysis, all of the data, and so on, the dashboard, lots of insight video content as well. The green button is the place where you can edit, amend, create your own content. So if you want to create, for example, if you work between 3 schools, you want to create a book study, put it into 3, you can do it that way. We've got schools, for example, in Wales that are creating content in Welsh. We work with a lot of special needs schools in Wales. They're creating content, sharing that too. And then we'll come across to the end and just show where the support and access is really if you want to get in touch and want any help. So that's just really from a quick sort of practical point of view. As far as the users are concerned, if you are using it for the first time, and I'll be very swift with this, add everybody to the system and just add them as users. You can assign them subjects later, but if you add your staff as a user, it means they're on the system. They can also log in. They can complete any learning walks or book studies that you assign to them. And like I say, we can assign them subjects and so on further down the road. They can also use and view the gallery as well. So that just gives them like a reduced and narrow view as a user. And then once you've got everybody on the system, you can see it populates them there, puts them in the classroom as well. So that means everybody's on the system. They'll get an email to log into the system as well. And they will just be able to have like 3 buttons really at the top. Once they're on the system, if you want to do, you can click the spanner and assign them subjects. So for example, here, this person, if I click the spanner, they've been assigned send. So that means that they will have a dashboard that is just send. So and I think that's useful for our Nautilus users as well, knowing that you can change and amend that. For any schools in Wales, we've got the 6 areas and the curriculum for Wales in there too. So we can assign those as well. And you can see down here, we've got a person who has responsibilities for art and music. So they will have a dashboard that is just art and music. They can create book studies and learning walks and things like that are just art and music. So again, that's how we can manage that. But just add everybody to the system and then you're good to go. So we're then going to head across to the create area, and you'll sort of see that we're going from left to right really as we start to do the session. And this is really the how-to bit. So here, what this shows us in this area is the list of all our activities. So at the minute we can see what's in progress currently. We can click to see what's there this year, or we can click to see all time as well. So what we want to do is obviously set up a book study. Now, I realize that there's going to be schools here that are different settings, high schools and so on. So you'll just have to kind of go with me a little bit, because I'm going to set one up really, which is a key stage 2 one. And that's kind of going for a best fit, but I'm sure as we go along, I will show you as well how to do the click and go book studies, the click and go work studies, so we can just dip in, or just to be able to populate the gallery on its own. But let me just show you how to create any activity, because this applies to a learning walk as well, and how we're going to, the best practice way really to be able to do that. So we're going to click on create here. And then in here, what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to set this up and populate this. So while I'm doing it, David, do you just want to mention a little bit about the fact that I'm being quite specific about what we're looking at here, the focus area for this book study, as I add it, and also really the fact that I'm just labeling it really clearly, so
Hmm.
that we can bring that up on the dashboard and see things nice and clearly.
Yeah, so when you are using Nautilus, and your staff, your leaders across the school are using Nautilus, having a clear labeling system for what you're calling observation focus is important. And you'll see David's using English subject, the key stage area. He's using EXP, which is going to be a focus on expected standard, and a date. And it just means that whenever you see that on a dashboard, you're going to know exactly what it is. Okay, so that's one thing to encourage. If you are a Nautilus user, just one thing to remind staff is to have that consistency, what the subject area is, when it is, what area of the school it might be, and any specific focus. It might be boys, it might be questioning, it might be um, pupil premium children. Just have that labeled in there. And you also have the opportunity, you can see there, David's added a tag. And the tagging means it's totally flexible for you. So if you've got areas that you are looking at for next year, and you're thinking, okay, well, this is going to be a real focus for us, come up with a tag for it, because you can use that across the board in Nautilus, and it'll be really useful, in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, if you'd be able to track back for that specific tag in general. But yeah, you've covered everything well there, David. Well done.
Thanks very much. So just to revisit there, what David mentioned, I'm going to focus on this occasion on the expected standard. So you may see, well, we normally do top, middle, and bottom. From my experience, that takes longer, it's less efficient, and it's less insightful. And that's problematic as well when we're talking about distributed leadership, and we want all subject leaders to be able to do a book study. So I would suggest in the first instance, focusing on that middle ground. So whether or not it's the expected, you can change the terminology as you choose. I would have a focus rather than doing the whole class. And again, what this is going to enable us to do is to see the progression through the year. And also for me as an English leader, to be able to validate really the books that I'm looking at, and agree or disagree with the judgments that have been made by the teacher when they submit these. So expected standard is really valid. And that means, particularly at this time of year, probably going to be about 35 minutes, this activity, and you'll see that when I set it up further. So as David mentioned, we labeled it nice and clearly. The key stage 2 tag means that we can filter by that on the dashboard. If we were doing year 6 or year 5 only, I would use those tags, so we could filter by that. If you're working in SEND and you've got provision, for example, where you've got different buildings, the Nightingale building or whatever it may be, quite often different units, you may want to use that as a tag as well. And in the same way that if you're using the curriculum for Wales, if you're the humanities leader, you may tag history. It depends what specific areas of the 6 areas you want to look at, but just keeping it nice and simple. I'm not going to use the stars. It's a preference, it's a choice for you if you want to use those. And the evaluation statements I'm going to use because I want to touch upon and just revisit why those are really important as well. So you can see there that's added it to the list. So it's now created, but it hasn't been assigned yet. Now, because this is me that's doing it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign it to myself first of all. So on this system, I'm Jules Verne. So that's going to be me. If I wanted to do this with a colleague, for example, an external partner, I could add James, who's my school improvement partner. And because we're focusing on English, that might be a priority. So a little bit of moderation potentially here going on as well. So if you do it with 2 people, 3 people, so you can have multiple contributors when you set it up this way. So multiple contributors, multiple entries, which means that your report is really credible and you've got that external validation. So that's a suggestion. But just keeping this quick and bearing in mind where we are in the school year and the fact we just want to populate this, it's going to be assigned to me. I'll assign it to myself, and then we're going to select our staff. So as I mentioned, this is key stage 2, and just for kind of simple logistics for the sake of the demo here, we're going to go with our year 6 teacher, year 5, year 4, and year 3. So 1 form entry on this occasion. I would suggest, if you were 2 form entry, I might do upper key stage 2 or lower key stage 2. But it's about quick samples as you go through the year. And I think that's the key thing to remember, because what we tend to do is we put in the diary that we're doing a book study here. And in actual fact, that means that we get kind of this pressure point sometimes. So I think it's good to be able to do quick samples as you go through the year. So I'm going to show you how we can do this in 30 or 35 minutes, really, which if you've got an hour of leadership management time per week is a really quick way as you go through the year, just to target certain year groups and so on, because this is the expected standard. But I may next half term, I may focus on I don't know, the pupil premium, as David mentioned, or I may focus on the pupils with additional needs. So I can then target those key groups dependent on the characteristics of my school. And I think that's a great intuitive way to work.
Hmm.
I think, David, we tend to work in blankets, don't we? So it's kind of like everything is blanket, everything is the same, and we think that's consistent. But it's quite often counterintuitive in that sense, don't you think?
It is, yeah. It's one of the words as well. We could add to our efficiency and accuracy is consistency as well, in terms of the way that is put across school. So
Mm,
as a leader, I mean, I'm looking back when I was a head teacher, David, consistency was one thing that kept me up at night, in terms of I was secure and happy in myself in terms of what was going on, but were my leaders consistent? What were they, the questions they were asking, were they consistent? So the data coming in is worthy, and to be, you got confidence in it because
mm,
there's the same questions are being asked across the school. And I think
mm.
that's one of the key things here is we've got a system in place here where we've got those questions being asked. With that line of inquiry is solid all the way through, no matter what subject you've got. So as a leader, you can be confident in that consistency across school, which is a key thing. If you haven't got that,
Yeah.
then there are issues, aren't there?
There can be, yeah, and I think that creating that common language is something we're going to look at a little bit closer in a moment. So I'm now, I've gone home, I've enjoyed my evening, I've come in the next day, and I'm now clicking on walks. Or I've just assigned it to myself, and I'm doing this in my hour of leadership management time. So, and I'm going back to what you were saying, David, really about leadership management time. We calculated that to give each leader an hour a week would cost £1,200 per teacher. So when you add that together over a year, it's like, what do you get from that time? I would say that the book study is probably the best use I can think of leadership management time. And so I think
Mm.
that when we look at how much it costs to subscribe to Nautilus, for example, I feel really comfortable about the fact that we're able to support schools with that, and then consider how much value they put on that time, and also again give them a systematic approach, whatever their leadership may be. So just logging in here on my device, or iPad or tablet. You could do this because it's a book study on your desktop. But here that just helps us to be able to kind of guide the camera a little bit more. And I've clicked on the walks here, and you can see it's assigned me those particular entries. So you can see I've got one per teacher. So we're not doing one entry per book. that would make it less efficient, and also it would provide, the feedback would be excessive. Because let's not forget that the feedback needs to be quick enough for the staff to take away and use. More often than not, it's a quick recommendation, an idea, or a commendation. The idea that it's about competency is a totally different exercise. So I think that this really, if we're looking for each of these teachers, I would be saying to them, can you give me 2 or 3 books, expected standard? So I've assigned this to me, and I'm the English leader, and I'm going to do these 4 entries, one for each teacher, which means each teacher will get same day feedback, and I'll show you that in a moment. In the same way that if I wanted to assign this to my maths leader, to somebody else, then I could obviously do that because I've set them up on the system. I showed you and mentioned how you can do that and add them as users. So I can assign those 4 entries to my maths leader and set it up the same way. Alternatively, if I assign my maths leader maths on the system, they can do it themselves. So you get the idea really of how you can create that capacity once everybody knows how to use it. But I guess the video is helpful really in that sense as well. So for each of these, we're just going to pop in now and then use and perform the book study. So you can see here, I've got Phileas, Ned, Lillian, and Kirk. So year 3, 4, 5, and 6. We can go in any order and they don't expire. So if I do get waylaid, it's not too much of a problem. And as I head in here to look at Phileas's books, I'm going to have a little look, expected standard. What I'm really looking to do at this point is to be able to evaluate the impact of the work that they do. So this is not about judging teachers. This is the impact of of everything they've done through the year. And I really like making that shift consciously. And I think that's worth unpicking and talking about in the staff room too. The other thing is because of the prompts that we've got, we're doing one of 2 things. We're either providing recognition, identifying good practice, celebrating achievement, or we're creating an opportunity to collaborate and to be able to provide a recommendation or share an idea. So that's really how we've framed this. So it's more of an adjective than it is, a verb than it is an adjective. But what that's going to do is it's going to give us the data. So that's the really helpful thing. And you can edit this and change this as well. But it's really helpful for all subjects to be able to give us data. The other thing that I would mention is it's all for school improvement purposes. So this is about being able to develop skill sets. And as we say, David, if you're teaching 9 subjects, there's going to be variation in competence, and it's good to acknowledge that. This is not about pay and career stage. This is about working alongside your colleagues to develop your subject area. So that's why it's framed very differently. But again, I would be putting that out there in the staff room and saying that's the rationale behind everything that we're doing. So in here, we can see, looking at the presentation, for example. Now, we'll look at the lines of inquiry. So we use lines of inquiry and prompts. We don't use descriptors. This is not a checklist exercise. This is about capturing, evaluating, and providing feedback for our colleagues. And that's really important to be able to kind of establish that. It's not about saying, yes, you've done that, you've done that, you've done that, you've done that. Because that's about compliance. That's kind of monitoring. That's what we used to do, but it's actually, I think it's less effective when it comes down to developing skill sets and helping staff to CPD. So on this occasion here, we can say that it's effective. Yes, we can say, if we need to develop something, that's absolutely fine. Like I mentioned, it may be to do with career stage. It may be to do that we've got a teacher here that's moved from year 1 to year 6. It could be that they are teaching an area of the curriculum that is less strong, and so therefore we can provide. I'm the leader, so I'm well placed to be able to share some feedback. Sometimes we may need priority areas. But most of the time, it's going to be good or better, isn't it? Because that's what we're finding in class. And like I say, it's not about competency. So I'm saying that because it's really important when we look at the book study that we consider the fact that it will support appraisal, but it's not for appraisal. It's not for that reason. It's for school improvement and staff development. That's the primary reason. So it's really important that we break that down and consider the fact that we're working alongside and with our colleagues to support their development, to identify strengths and areas for development. So in here, I'm going to use the voice type as well. So I'm just going to do this nice and quickly. The working books is well presented, full stop. Why not revisit this occasionally through the year just to set the expectations in the classroom? Full stop. Oops. I think I clicked it too soon, but you get the idea. So using the voice type, we can, and that's a button on your device. Use the voice type, enter in your thoughts and views. You could see there when I was talking, I was saying, yes, it's well presented, but I'm making a suggestion so I can identify a next step. Even though it's effective, I'm saying, try this. And then it could be, so I'm making a suggestion as well, just prompting them, reminding them to revisit those expectations. And that voice type, I think, is really significant because this is for busy leaders, how we can manage to be able to share this feedback the same day without having to go away and create reports. So again, that creates a pressure point in school. So if this is a process, nice and quick, and as I was just sort of demonstrating there, a couple of quick sentences to say what we've seen. And again, if it's not applicable, we can edit, we can change it, we can create our own content. But I think presentation really, this is not subject specific. I'm using it for English, but this could be science, it could be history, it could be geography, it could be maths. We're talking about the application of your school policy, aren't we? Rather than us at Nautilus saying this is what a good book should look like. So really, it's about the impact and how that's been applied within the classroom. So I think that's very different. So we're going to start by taking a little look at the presentation. Then we're thinking about the pitch. So into here, pitch, pace, progression, an appropriate program of study. So if you are working in special ed, then ultimately, is it a good fit? Is does it, is the pitch right? If we're talking about mainstream, then obviously the pitch, pace, and progression is a key feature in some of the curriculum developments we've done. So what we're doing here is we're just putting into our school now a common language, so all of our leaders and staff know that that is something that we're mindful of. So that will influence what they do in the classroom when they're planning a lesson. And ultimately, there's no surprises. So I would be sharing this before I do the book study ideally, and I would be making sure that the language is commonplace in the school and the expectation is clear, because we can then use this and there's no surprises. It's helpful because indirectly we're getting school improvement because people are working very consciously around these areas. So this line of inquiry is a good one, really. And unfortunately, I think really when it comes down to inspection, it is a key feature. So I do think it makes explicit the fact that that is really well considered. Pupil contributions, not to mention, by the way, that pitch one there that we've got. I think that's a key one because we're looking at the expected standard. So that's why it makes it easier to be able to see what the progression looks like from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 as we work through those books. Or if we're doing a 1 year group, we can look, let's say with 3 form entry, we can see how that looks across the year group. So as a leader, I'm sort of validating, aren't I? I'm looking and saying year 6, this is year 6 class A, class B, class C. Let's have a little look at that. And as a leader, I'm able to kind of place myself to be able to look at the pitch, pace, progression in each of those, pick out the best practice, identify any inconsistencies. So that's why that, targeting that expected standard is a simpler and easier, it's a clearer way to be able to see just from that stack of books what that progression looks like. So I think that's a good one there, really, as we start to look at that, the pitch one there, sorry, just to backtrack. Pupil contributions. I think this is a really important one because if I look in a school book and I see 2 or 3 sentences every day, I start to think, well, what does the rest of the hour look like? So is that the best use when it comes down to acquiring and applying? So I think being able to see sustained writing, this is English and it's key stage 2. So I should see some lengthy writing in there. I should be able to see, some short position lessons, and then also some application sessions where the children have that sustained writing opportunities. So I think that's a key thing, and I think that that's a good one to put out there with the staff so that they can appreciate that if it's not, if they don't have sufficient time to secure those skills and apply those skills, that we end up with a retrieval issue. Lots of schools and teachers sort of are focusing on that, and that's how it can occur when things are half baked. So we want to make sure that we're really enabling the children to be able to kind of secure those skills. But again, this is applicable to whatever the setting, and that's the beauty of the book study, like our learning snapshot, is that it's versatile. Progress, it's relative. So it doesn't say here, that it's a statistical measure. So it's all relative to your setting. So it's progress on the day. There's the objective. Was it made? Across the unit, first page, Monday to Friday, if we're doing fractions, first page to last on this instance. And I think at the end of the school year, that's a key point in the school year where we're able to have a little look and then start to see what does it look like on that first day and on that last day. And I would, I know from my experience in school, I would be able to pick this up and say, this is outstanding. Take a look. I would be saying to the teachers, take a look at that first page, take a look at that last page. You did that. I used to find, I don't know about you, David, but I used to find that my staff got so engrossed, and sometimes they could be quite demoralized because they didn't feel like they were making a difference. And then I could go in and say, pick up the book, take a look at first page to last page, particularly a new arrival that's just come from wherever, or a pupil with additional needs, because that's not exclusive here. So I just think that that is a massive oversight. The progress when we look in books, David, is significant. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think naturally teachers are fairly hard on themselves across the board, and don't often pat themselves on the back. And that's one of the reasons why we have these channels here, so that if we don't tell them, no one's going to tell them.
Mm,
So having an opportunity to be able to put someone, pat someone on the back and say, just look at that, that's fantastic. And quite often you see it especially in early years, where you see, a child that's initially mark making in the autumn term. By the time you get to spring term, summer term, and the transformation is phenomenal. And the
yeah.
hard work, what you don't see behind that is the hard work that's gone into that. We know it because we're in there and we've seen it. But for teachers to actually have that opportunity to sit and look, and not even that, but to have somebody tell them
Mm,
that is phenomenal, well
mm,
done.
yeah.
Because if we don't tell them, no one else is going to.
Yeah. And I think, as you mentioned there with reception and early years, I think that's applicable in SEND, where you've got some really incredible outcomes, really, with pupils with those additional needs. But I also think wherever you get emergent writing, we tend to think of year one, and I think that there are some profound outcomes in year one when it comes down to emergent writing. So I think that's in particular one where it's very visible. It might be less so in year six, but it might be more detail that's required really when it comes down to kind of providing that insight. But absolutely. So the progress, I think, and again, we're not mentioning statistical thresholds. We're not talking about national expectations, Ofsted descriptors. If you want to reference them, fine, but ultimately we don't want to create a pass or fail situation here. So challenge and extension. So the application of your policy, breadth, depth, how is that applied? How does the teacher, further the learning? And I think there's some really clever strategies that staff have to be able to do that. So that's one thing that I would really sort of draw attention to. And I think that a lot of schools are working on that, which is why we incorporate that in our book study. And then finally, marking and feedback. And so that's the impact of the marking and feedback policy. We're not saying how to do it. And again, I think that's really key. So it's important to be able to look at the application of marking and feedback in your school and in these books in particular, and the impact of that. So it can come in all different shapes and sizes. We're looking at the effect. So is it integral and effective? So you can see there from those 6 areas, it's fairly efficient. We're just looking at, 2 books from 4 teachers, so we're not excessive when it comes down to it. We're focusing this on the expected standard. We're getting data here. So we're going to use that on our dashboard and take a look at that report in a minute, and we'll look at the AI and things like that, and how we can learn more from the data and build up that picture. We're creating next steps. We'll take a quick look at that as well, really, so where we can intervene and again work intuitively to provide opportunities. As I mentioned, I was saying that it was effective, but try this. So that was the next step. Next step, we're using that term rather than area for improvement or target or objective, because again, this is about colleagues working together. This is not about top downs, but systematically doing this across the school as subject leaders. And then the feedback, we'll take a look at how we can share that the same day and what that looks like in the reports as well. So, David, we've got those books where it's a 35-minute PPA session, leadership management session. We're doing a quick evaluation on the expected standard. We're getting the data. We've got some feedback, so we're able to kind of acknowledge and work with our staff to develop skill sets. But what about the photos? How can we use photos now to be able to showcase and spotlight the best learning? Because this is not just about, taking pictures of nice things for the server, is it?
It's certainly not. And there's two things here we'll look at in two parts. Firstly, it's actual the use of images. But secondly, it's about what you can do with them and how you use them moving forward. So on Nautilus, whenever you are doing a book study or a learning snapshot or using one of the forms, there is always an opportunity at the bottom to upload some photographs or some video if you're looking at other areas of the curriculum where video might support, and we'll touch on them shortly.
Mhm.
And you can then, I mean, it is perfect opportunity, isn't it? If you've got those books out, and I've done, I don't know how many hundreds of book studies I've done in my time, but it normally is the same setup, a table in front of me. I've asked for some selections of books to come. I've got different piles. I've got a pro forma I might be working through, and I'll start looking and opening. And at that point, that is a perfect opportunity to be taking some images. Okay,
Mm.
not just following a pro forma and putting pencil to paper, but actually, what is it? Let's get some images. Let's see what these are. Let's use these images correctly in the future moving forward. So when you're on Nautilus, you've got an opportunity to toggle your camera on, which David has done. Obviously, for this webinar, David's camera is in use in the webinar. So you'd have an image there and you can capture the image. But then the key here is the tagging. You are allowed to add your own tags. And, we can see here David has tagged it English, Year 6, Writing, Expected Standard, Non-Fiction, and Handwriting. Some key things. As an English leader, David's capturing that image and saying, this shows these things, okay? And these labels, these tags are then visible because every
Mm.
single image on Nautilus goes into a central gallery, which we will show you shortly, and they're all tagged. And so we can go and drill down and have a look and pull out various different examples to support our own evaluations moving through school in the next year or so as well. So if you want to add some context, you can add a comment there if you want to add something in particular, but the tagging is the most important thing.
Works. Mhm.
David's gone back to early years there in sand. So we've got send, and we'll show you how this is used because it's about how it's used, not going into the kind of the empty server of endless pictures of visits and all sorts of things that aren't being used. And
Mm.
so what we'll do, we'll come back to this and show you, once you can imagine, if I'm a head teacher and I've got my leaders, from a DT leader, my history leader, my English, my maths, my science, all capturing this wonderful examples of learning and outcomes, and it's going into a useful place and it's labeled, I can see it, they can see it,
Yeah.
it's usable, then we're on to a winner, first of all. But secondly, we can all be using these, and you can see by David's tagging there, the fact that he's tagging send and he's not the SEND leader, he is actually supporting his SEND leader by capturing that and including the tag, because the SEND leader will be able to see it. So when we look at the gallery, David, we'll show examples of that, how we can kind of, we
Yeah.
call it a bit of cross pollination,
Mhm.
where that culture, and I think it all helps build that culture in a school
Yeah.
where we're supporting each other just by adding a tag.
Yeah.
The what you would have to do as an English leader there, David, on paper
Yeah.
would be, take a picture, go and print it off, 2 copies, one for your folder, go and find the SAND leader, go and give it to
Yeah.
them, expect them to
Yeah.
put it in their folder. It just wouldn't happen, but digitally, we're in that age now where we can do it by simply adding a tag, and we'll show that shortly.
Yeah, I'll just making that point there, David. So the one thing I would say when you do this, just good practice. And I would say this, roll this out with all of your staff, is first of all tag by subject, second then tag by year group, then tag by area of study. So writing here is, we're going to specify that. Then on this occasion that this is the expected standard. So I'm taking a sample here, which I want staff to use to be able to see this is what the expected standard looks like. So rather than having those dusty folders, which you used to have to go and find to be able to find a sample and then take a look at, and this is what, non-fiction should look like in year 3. In actual fact, we're going to have that live. So that expected standard, this is where we're going to be able to kind of really be strategic about the pictures that we take. Non-fiction, so the genre area, you can add your own tags. So this could be blast off or whatever you want to call it. You'll all have your kind of areas of the curriculum. And I think that's a wonderful way for all staff to contribute to that if you pick those themes and tag by those. Handwriting, I want to showcase here on this occasion, and then or send pupil premium. So once you've put those kind of
Mm.
things in and staff get good at tagging, then it's kind of like, does this pupil have additional needs? Is that key? Is this pupil premium? So that's key as well. History, as David mentioned, that means my history leader can use this because this is, let's say, it's about World War II. So it gives you a bit of an idea. Non-fiction writing, you get the idea as to how we're doing things, and a little bit of commentary really here, bearing in mind that this is going to be in the gallery and everybody's going to be able to see it. So I think it's a great opportunity to say, love this. This is what we really like about it, because it is the best practice. It is the impact that you're selecting. So we take that picture, we upload it, and you think, well, okay, well, we've taken one picture. But in actual fact, this is why I think the photography element is really key. And this is why I say that this book study can be so rich and we can get so much out of it. Because if I've got a book now, or these books from the year, in actual fact, I can now take a picture of this one because it's a really good example of non-fiction. I can go back 5 pages and take a picture of this one because this is instructions. I can go back another 10 pages and show this one because it's biographies. So we'll have that full spectrum of work where we've probably covered, I don't know, 10 or 12 units, different areas of the curriculum. And in actual fact, we could be taking pictures to be able to signpost and showcase all of that. And I think that that is where we start to appreciate and understand how much learning takes place. It's so vast. And if you try to do that top, middle, and bottom, that would be too long, too much. So again, the same in maths. We could be looking at fractions. Then we could take this book and then go back a few pages and take a look at algebra and so on and get those samples. So everything that we're going in is going into the gallery. And the beauty of that is that it's, now and for September, when you come back at the start of the year and the classrooms are decluttered, you'll have this rich portfolio. You can pop it on the screen and say, this is how good it needs to be come July. So it's really about raising the bar, raising awareness, and from working in failing schools, which my career tends to have been. It's really about sort of creating opportunities for staff to see, I'm a year 4 teacher, but this is what the year 3 writing looks like. And this is what the year 5 writing should look like. And this is where they need to be by year 6. So that galleries, we'll come back to it. There's too much to say. Jess mentioned there about the voice type and asked a question. So the voice type in here is, I'm using right click, I'm using Microsoft Edge. And that helps us to be able to voice type. And as you can see here, it works really well, even with my dulcet Bradford accent. I won't put that into the system, or shall I? But you can get the idea. And obviously, as David mentioned, there's a button there next to your space bar. We've come a long way since Dragon Speak. The other thing that we can do is video capture. So obviously on this occasion, it's not clickable, but that's really there when we're starting to look at dance, PE, reading, drama, music, and so on, those other areas of the curriculum where we may be doing a learning snapshot and using that. So that was a quick signpost. So entry complete, that goes into the system, and that's the feedback there for Phileas. So down here, that goes into my complete column. That one's done, but I can come back and edit it. I would also really, as you start to kind of make further head down the road a little bit, I would talk to staff really about the etiquette around what we're trying to achieve here. So yes, we want a balance of challenge and support, and yes, we want to apply a critical eye. but we also want to capture and give recognition to our team. So I think it's really important to think about the language we use, how we frame things. We've done that carefully on the system, and so it doesn't compromise the data, but it also complements those principles. So I do think there's some good CPD to do there. Now, if we want to feed this back to our teacher, because it's a quick exercise, I can now click and email this directly to Phileas. And this is a good way to be able to impart this. And because it's light touch, I don't need to sit down with them. I'm not target setting. I'm not managing their appraisal. So yes, for max impact, have a chat. But also we appreciate and understand that if everybody's doing this, then ultimately there's a lot taking place. So I can email this to them, and if I do, that's what it looks like. So the other thing that I would do is show this on the screen so staff know what to expect. Send one to yourself if you haven't done this already. But what it does do is it takes the framework, it gives us the lines of inquiry, it reinforces the expectations, and then it just drops in your comment. So there's no judgment in there. There's no reference to kind of inspectorate and great, descriptors and teacher standards or anything like that. I think it's really thorough and really helpful. But the feedback, the voice typing that I've used, as you can see there, is really light touch, because most of the time it's like, love this, like this, try this. So it doesn't need to be that we're writing paragraphs every time. Bearing in mind that if everybody does a book study and that's the expectation, again, the feedback is going to take longer. So the efficiency is reduced. So we compromise. So it's really, I think it's good to kind of point that out. But I also think, David, receiving that feedback nice and quickly for teachers validates the process, doesn't it?
It does, and if you think in terms of a practical level, receiving that first of all, it's professional, it's simple to understand, but also from the person that sent it, you haven't had to write the whole thing out. So it's a very, very quick and easy way to get that through. And again, we keep talking about the culture. It just provides that culture of quick, informative feedback, which can be used and valued. And we always say, feedback is a gift, and to be able to give that to people, and on the whole, that tends to be really positive feedback being given there. And who
Yeah.
doesn't like positive feedback?
Well, I mean, and going back to the bigger things and about delving a little bit more into leadership, I always think that the teachers thrive on recognition. So if you can make this experience positive, and if you can enable them to feel valued, this is a good way to be able to do it. Because I think the problems that we've got in school, they're quite often is, how do we receive recognition? What do those channels look like from
Mm.
parents, from pupils, from colleagues? This is a method, a systematic approach that empowers you to be able to say to staff, love the way you do this. And it's personal, isn't it? It's that connection. I thought that was a privilege in my job, but what it does do, the bigger implications, people like working, they're valued, they leave the building, they stay, you retain staff. And so I think that those are all underlying factors, and that's cultural. So some bigger things at play. I'm just showing you now the very quickly the work study, because we looked at the book study and the core subject really, if we're looking at English and maths, which we tend to do because we know that that's what we're going to be judged on sometimes. But when we talk about being broad and balanced, or if I could, we've worked really hard on this breadth and we've got strengths in other areas, how do we use an equivalent framework to be able to capture and do this? So you can download this framework from Facebook, from the files section in our community, and you can edit it too. So, and I'm using the click and go, by the way. So yes, we can assign multiple visits, multiple entries like I did when I set up the book study. But what about if we just see, the teacher says, come here, Mr. Rushby, and then look at this. And then you would want them to do that. And I'm the art leader. I can then head in and I can put this into the system. So we can either evaluate it or just take a picture and submit it, which we'll come back to shortly. So I'm using the click and go, which is the easiest way. And the same works if you want to perform a snapshot or one individual lesson visit. This is one entry. So curriculum work study I'm going to use. I'm popping into Captain Nemo. It's an art lesson. I've had an invitation. I've tagged it year 5, so I can filter by that. And then when I pop into here, it gives me an equivalent framework. I'm going to apologise here for the fact that it's age appropriate, because I think in Send you can edit and change that, which you can do anyway with this one live. But this is, if I'm looking at a painting, a pizza, a sculpture, a print, all of those other areas of the curriculum, we could use this framework. I actually think we can use it for PE and music as well, performance and dance. Content. So again, we're looking at the pitch, pace. Is it relevant? Is it appropriate? Engagement. Is the stimulus interesting and engaging? Don't get me started on Mondrian as an arts graduate. Seriously, David, we're inspiration. We want children to engage in art, and we're putting a Mondrian on the board and saying this is what art can look like. I'll kind of get it, but no thanks. So then we'll take a look at the application, what's been acquired. So those straight lines, red, yellow, grey, etc. Whatever you want to do. I'll make reference to Starry Night by Van Gogh, because I think that's a better one. And you can put the Don McLean on in the classroom in the background while you're painting together. So the application and the outcomes here as well. So has that outcome been secured? So this was the expectation on the day. This was the expectation for that topic. Has that been achieved? So you get the idea. I think with that 4, it's really concise, really quick. Means you can dash around when you say to the staff, who's doing some art, please could you let me know. And this one, when we take the pictures, David, and we'll take a look in the gallery again, is where it is that stuff that gets decluttered and squashed on the bus on the way home come summer, isn't it?
It is, and it makes a lovely. I mean, it lends itself to a portfolio. The art and things like DT, things that yes don't last very long in school, unfortunately, or don't last very long in the hands of young children either. But they do lend themselves brilliantly, and they're a really good showcase for showing children. I mean, thing is as well, David, I'm not an art graduate. My art is pretty woeful, to say the least. But to be able to call on a bank, a portfolio of work that the children have done previously that I can be showcasing to the children not only helps me, but it really sets those expectations. And we all know, don't we? The key to raising attainment, raising progress is all around expectations. So anything we can leverage to help
Yeah,
us with that journey is certainly welcome. And when we look at the gallery, we'll see that in abundance.
yeah. So just click back on the create area. This was up here, the second button along. This is where I created it. And because I'm going to show you this report in a moment. But as you can see, it was a key stage. So I had multiple entries. And so that was a key thing. One report with multiple entries. We looked at the click and go there, which was just a standalone visit. So that's just one entry. But in here, just thinking a little bit, and this is a suggestion or an idea, because this is something we did in school. What we did was we said, we're going to have a staff meeting next Tuesday. We'd like everybody to send down 3 books or samples of work, expected standard for each subject. And then the TAs brought the work down. And then down in the lunch hall, there was a table that had maths, and it had piles, and it went reception year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there were 2 expected standard books, for example, maths. On the next table, science. And so everybody just submitted those, and we made an effort to put those down. Then what we did is all the leaders went to their table, and all the leaders performed a book study or a work study. And they did. And so when we set this up, we created one for each leader. They could do it themselves as you get a little bit further down the road, but for each leader, maybe whole school, or a key stage if you wanted to do that. Whole school you could probably do in an hour, most schools, if we're focusing on expected standard. But regardless of whether or not the exercise got finished and everybody got a chance to submit things, if it wasn't that everything, it didn't all get covered, what we did was we learned from that, and we started to see what impact that had on the dashboard. But in 1 hour, you had all the teachers, and you had that progression in learning. And it was a real, I mean, as far as staff meetings are concerned, it was practical, it was insightful, it was for the staff. They weren't listening. It was about, the impact of the work that they've done. It was about gaining insight strategically so they could plan ahead for next term. It was a really great way to be able to use a staff meeting, and I would suggest if you can set that up, because it might take you a little bit of time, particularly as you're a new user, to prep that. It means that's a really great way to be able to do that. So that's just something to consider uh, if you want to, set up a specific meeting. So let's head to the dashboard and have a little look and see what this is telling us, because I think the primary focus for this meeting today, this session really, the primary is how to do it. So we've looked at how to do it, but let's really start to think now about what that's starting to give us, because I think that this is where we start to look at what the dividends could be and how we could, because I think it's good to have that in mind. So on my dashboard, I'm a head teacher. So as I mentioned, the beauty of that is that I've got all my leaders submitting all this stuff, and then I'm in receipt of that. So my understanding of the strengths and areas for development in the school is it's just really, it's just so useful to be able to have that and that clarity and confidence again, rather than wait until October to look at last year's SATs and then apply it to my current year sixes from domain analysis of a year group that have gone and are now in year seven. So, I mean, we can talk and talk, but so this is live. We can use this. 1 is low, 4 is high. My school average is here. So all my leaders can benchmark against that. So that's consistent, that stays there. And that's for school improvement purposes. And again, we're using those evaluation statements that we've looked at. So we're looking developmentally at applying this in the right sense in school, but it will support self-evaluation. We've got our portfolio, and you can see we've labeled them nice and clearly. So if I key in maths, I can bring up any maths. So if I key in expected standard, I can bring those up too. And that's why the labeling was so important. Down here, we can see all the frameworks and tools that we've used, but we're going to look at book studies in a moment. So what I'm going to do in here, I'm going to come back to the dashboard in a moment, because what I want to do really is look at that walk that we've done. So let's just go into here and pop in the expected standard, and let me have a little look for the one that we've done. So I want to do key stage 2 expected standard there. So 3.25. So this is an equivalent of what we've just done. And we can see here 3.25. That means that for me, I can see it's slightly above the school average, and that's helpful. So I know at a glance, really, it gives me a ballpark figure. 4 entries, and then as we click into here, we've got some further insight. So what we can get here is really quick data. We don't want to have to kind of filter and drill down and find, and we'll take a look at the AI in a minute. We can see who's done it. So that's just because that's me. The 4 entries, we can see where our strengths and areas for development are. And it may be that Lillian, she's just moved into year 3 or year 6 from year 2. So there's things to consider there, to be able to support, and it helps me to work intuitively. I can click into those and learn more. I can see the strengths and areas for development whole school strategically at a glance. The 5 lines of inquiry we're focused on, I can hover and see what they look like over all time. So that means it's not standalone. Every time we do a book study, we're populating the database and we're getting this more thorough contextual data. And then as we hover across, we could see what it looks like on this occasion. So the current, this occasion compared to all time. And as we come down here, that's how this data is presented. So quality of education, all time on the right, this occasion on the left. So no reference to teachers or lessons. Okay, so we've now got that insight. This is one report, one book study that we've done, the same as the one that we looked at this morning. If I now really want to be able to kind of gain more from this, I can click on Nemo, and we've added Nemo fairly recently. This is our AI dashboard assistant. And if I click on him, he will present a suggestion, a suggested request and then we can learn more from the insights. David, I'm going to pop across to you just to be able to kind of talk a little bit more about the advantages of that AI insight.
Yeah, well, I get very excited about this, David.
That's
And the
why I
reason I
gave
get
you this
excited,
this
yeah,
opportunity.
the reason I get excited about this is because we talk about efficiency, don't we? And I go back to a regular thing that would happen to me as English leader. I would have to do report to governors every now and then about about English. A subject leaders report to governors, and I'd probably forget it was due, and the head teacher would say, "Oh, remember, David, governing body meeting on Wednesday. This was on a Friday." And I'm thinking, "Oh, bang goes my weekend." I know what I'm going to have to do now. I do have the information, but it's about finding it, extracting the information that I want, and then I have to physically write a report. Here on the platform, on your subject leaders or your areas of responsibility, no matter what the way you've set up your staffing, they all have access to their leadership dashboards. They have access to this, the Ask Nemo feature, the AI assistant that will go in and will take a look at the last 20 activities and pull out the headlines for you. So it's using your data. So we're really talking about an ethical use of AI. And I think one thing we talk about with schools with AI is the word ethics and how we can ethically use it. But we know AI is only as good as the prompt. So we have a prompt there for you already. You can tweak that as you see fit. You can add a word detailed before the word report, or in less than 200 words if you want it in a paragraph for an introduction. You can ask questions like David's doing there, and it will pull things out, knowing and having the confidence that it's using your data that you have been putting into the system. And I think that's really important. That's the only access it has. And so you can lift that, you can lift and copy that, the writing from there and put it into your own report as an introduction, some key areas. If you're sending an email out to your chair of governors or to your SLT team, it's a really good and a great way of using AI. And one of the key things here, David, is that it's saving the time of actually writing it. We have other areas on the dashboard where we can take PDFs, which we'll see and we'll have a look at as well. But also in terms of the state of play of a subject, it's a really good way of putting that into some a key paragraph showing some strengths, some areas for development. And this data, remember, David, is yesterday, is the day before. We're not going back a year or 18 months looking at test scores. This is really recent, up to date, and you can have confidence that it's going to be useful information that you can use depending on who you're speaking to or who you're sending it to. But I think the key word for me with all this, David, is ethics and an ethical use of it. And the teachers we've been working with on this
Mm.
have really loved this feature, haven't they?
Yeah, and just going back to that, I think one thing typically what we find with quite a lot of software is that you have to one thing quite often. Sorry, chain of thought. Is that you have drop downs? Is that you have this software where you have to go year group, cohort, subject, term 3, summer born, free school meals, and you go through this series, and then you get a PDF, and oh, that's the wrong one, and then you have to get, and it's a very fixed kind of like do this, do this, do this, do this. You can end up with a very complex report that you then have to interpret. What about your audience? It's not tailored. So with that, I can do it anonymous, supportive to say thanks to staff. This is great, staff. Thanks very much. It was a really useful exercise. This is what we found. This is good. This is good. This is good. Let's try this. We can find individual feedback. We can find strengths. We could do it in a formal report. If you wanted to, it will put it into a grid, create a more formal report. So you can do it that way as well. Daniel just mentioned how you got to ask Nemo. Down in the bottom corner, Nemo will give me the insights on this report. David, I'm sure you were responding there as well. So we've got Nemo on the dashboard too, so we can use it as a priority user, and we can use it to look at subjects and everything else. So we'll come back to that in a minute. If you do want to take it away as a PDF, fine, there's a time and a place for that. But all of our PDFs are very simple and they're all uniform. So they all look the same. And it's because there's a flow of information. This is not like tests where we have it 3 times a year. This is about, I'm going to do expected standard, then I'm going to focus on a different group in the school. So key stage 1, key stage 2. So it's start reports, use them, populate the dashboard, apply the feedback. And so it needs to be simple. And the insights that we've just seen on that report page, we can then take away and obviously share. So useful for being able to share with staff, no references to teachers or lessons, useful for strategic purposes. This will tell us our strengths and areas from this activity. And then we can share this with the staff. Heads can use it. Inspectors can use it. I think that's a good way to show how you do things, or the LA or the diocese or whoever you may be accountable to, but governors as well, because it's very simple and intentionally so. So it's nice and quick and easy to understand, and you don't have a raft of acronyms in there for them to unpick. So that's a strategic approach. So that's where the data is really starting to help us. And as we head across to the dashboard, then we start to kind of learn more once we start to apply the filters. So this is my whole school. It includes PE, as you can see up there, and other subjects. And once we start to filter by different subjects, then we can see what that looks like. So if I'm an English leader, essentially, this is what I would see. But if I'd been assigned just this subject, so if I was geography, history, or whatever, this is the narrowed view, really, if you like, and that shows book studies, learning snapshot, and an AFL snapshot that we're using as well. So we're getting all this insight, this more contextual insight. This is the current year. I can see all year. And then we start to get timelines and so on. So the dashboard, we can apply filters, look at year groups, we can look at key stages and so on, and we get that bigger, more thorough picture. And I think for a head teacher to be in receipt of this, and or a senior leadership team, and to sit here and say, we're going to look at year 5, year 4, year 3, let's look at history, let's look at, it's a really good way to be able to kind of inform your school improvement plans. Because again, from a school improvement point of view, developing skill sets, put your faith into developing and working with your staff, the outcomes will take care of themselves. Why we start with the outcomes domain analysis from this cohort and then apply it to this cohort, to me, is questionable. It's one way of doing it, but I know that that can be really hard work and some of it will not stick. So I think this is more in, if you can crack this, then I think that you're really starting to make a difference from a school improvement perspective. The other thing
Can I
that we
just
can do
add?
is, sorry, please do, yeah.
I just want to add one thing there, David. As a head teacher, one of my bugbears was getting hold of a collection of subject leader files.
Yeah.
There's one thing that just took. It was hassle for the people I was asking, because they were, could be at home, being worked on, etc. Or people might not want to be handing them in, so I'd get excuses. But knowing where things were was one thing. But this is a great example of hitting the efficiency button as a head teacher. The fact that I've got access online to pretty much all the subject leader files,
Yeah.
and they are up to date, as in,
Mm.
I can look back and see what's happening yesterday, last week, last term, etc. And I
Yeah.
can just dip in. So even just to kind of relieve a little bit of my, if I was having a bit of a stress flashpoint or something, thinking, okay, we did this last term. What was this, and what was the impact of that? The fact that I can just go and touch base with a subject without having to hassle anybody, I think, is a really nice way of being able to manage some of those flashpoints.
Yeah, and it's live. It's as you say, David. It's reflecting what we're doing now. We can look at it. We're going to apply different filters and look at timescales. I've just moved across to the headlines because I think that, again, this is useful. So this is for a priority user. So you may or may not have this as a subject leader because it's a little bit more sensitive, but it's really important that as a subject leader, you can use this. So you can export it as a little JPEG if you just want to take away that window for reporting purposes and share it. But what I've done is I've still got the filter applied. So this is my English in school. So this allows me to be able to see what the skill set looks like from all the book studies, all the snapshots, etc. I can see then using it interactively where the best practice may be. And I can see, again, coming through here, I can see where we may need to be able to apply support. So, and that's really important that we know and use that, because again, down here, Colonel Everest, it may be, has just got a pupil in the class with high needs. It could be that they've again moved year groups. So there's there's contextual factors there, and it is for school improvement purposes. So it's good for me to know that. But most importantly, really, it just means that I've got this kind of this live picture and everything's building up, and I can use it to inform my strategic planning. So that's really the dividend. And if I come across the trends here and apply now by book studies, I can then start to see what that looks like across the year. And I can start to see what the book studies look like as I build that picture. And I can then apply filters for year 5, year 6, key stage 1, whatever they may be, from the tags that we've created. So lots of insight really when it comes down to being able to utilize, I'll clear that, to utilize those insights and really help, that data helps us to be able to build up that picture. So you're getting a really secure understanding. And I think that's about confidence as a leader, so that the decision making when it comes down to, because this is the thing, we want to be able to place all our leaders in a position where they know their subject really well, and then can sit down and say, next year we need to focus on this. I would say from that's really that report we've looked at just now, that's already tipping you off and telling you what that could be. So just from this exercise that we're doing, it could really make a difference to what you do in September. David, I'm popping over to the gallery. So I'll click around here and just give you a little bit of chance to talk a bit more really about how we're using this, because I think we've made a real point of talking about some of the benefits.
Yeah, so I'm going to think about in my school, I've got my subject leaders, my curriculum area leaders, or some of my phase leaders who are doing book studies, curriculum work reviews, learning snapshots, and any opportunity they have got to take images or video of outcomes is going in here, okay, in one central place. They are being tagged. Some contextual information may well be added. And I've got overview of this. Now in the gallery on Nautilus, the gallery is open to everybody. We all get to see it, which is great, because even if you've got a governor, a chair of governor as a user level on here, they can also see this. And we can see everything. So the filtering system and the way you search things is really important to get to see what you actually want to see. And that just takes a few moments to go in and play around with the filtering and the tagging search. But remember that everything that went in was tagged. And so what we do encourage SLT members to do is, when you embark on your Nautilus journey, is to have those conversations around what are our main tags going to be. The main areas of school improvement for you. Let's come up with some tags and have some consistency. So David's just gone in, and maybe he's the English leader, and he's tagged his writing. He's gone and searched for the writing tag. It will bring up the entire portfolio of writing across the curriculum, whether somebody tagged some history and tagged it writing as well, that will appear. If someone tagged SEND but also tagged writing, that will appear. So we've got this broad range of writing, and this is where we can drill down further. So David may well be having a conversation with somebody, maybe deep dive worthy, I don't know, about what are the expected standards, what do the standards look like across your school in writing. Well, we can drill down, because we can look at writing. So he's searched for that tag. He's also added expected standard. So within the writing, we're looking for tags that are expected standard and writing. But then drilling down further, he's added the tag year 6. So we've got year 6, expected standard and writing. So we can really see how we can drill down and find what we want to find purely by searching the tags. And we get some lovely examples. And I think this is the life and soul of the school, when you can see the examples that have been showcased here. And it works for all the different subject areas and things. But, in terms of sharing this with other writing leads from other schools might be one thing for moderation purposes. How does this compare with what they are saying? If you've got I know with English leaders, you might have an English leader at a neighbouring school or part of your multi-academy trust that might be coming in for a chat. This is a perfect opportunity to showcase what you have got in your school and what you've decided. And again, David's just showing the cross-curricular approach here. We've got writing, but let's look at history and writing. And this is, I mean, I love this example, David. You know, this is a year 5 teacher, history leader, who took this image of their history display they put outside of their classroom, but they tagged it writing because it was some non-chronological reports about, or some newspaper reports about some historical stuff in history. They tagged it Egypt, they tagged it non-chronological reports, they tagged it year 5, but
Mm,
the key is they tagged it writing as well. And so as a
mm,
writing leader, it's not just my responsibility here. Everyone's got a responsibility to be showcasing some of that and populating my portfolio with some of their work as well. And this is, I think you mentioned this earlier, David, around things like art and DT. You know, that Viking longboat there, I'm telling you, David, within 30 minutes of leaving school is not going to look like that. It'll be squashed in the back of a car somewhere. The sail would have collapsed, unfortunately, and
mm,
it will be gone. Here, we've got evidence of it. We can make some contextual notes if we want to. And, you know, it really showcases some of the best things. And by the time that's gone back and destroyed, we've still got that as evidence in school. And it's the same for art and some other areas of the curriculum as well. You know, why
mm.
there's one there, David. Scroll down a bit. I don't know if you saw that.
Oops, I just missed that.
Oh, it's gone. Doesn't matter. We'll come on to some others. But there were some whiteboards that had been photographed.
Yeah.
You know, how often do we use that? You know,
Mm,
there we go. Yeah. And it could be some simple maths working out. It could be some early mark making. It could be some phonics work. But the fact that we can take quick images, either store them
mm, mm,
on our iPads in our albums, or whether we could do live pictures. We've got them there before they are taken away or rubbed off as well.
mm,
So it's, again, send. We always, when we do our send webinars, David, one thing we always talk about is the responsibility of send is everybody's responsibility, not the send leader. And this is a really good example of how your class teachers can be uploading send evidence, because they're the ones that are seeing it every single day in the classrooms.
mm,
Okay. And you know, as a send leader, it's the kind of the golden egg, isn't it, to have staff that are contributing the
mm,
evidence into your portfolio, because you're only one person. You can't be in 8, 10, 12, 14 classrooms at once.
mm.
It's a really good opportunity to get that working for you. And again, artwork,
Yeah.
perfect, and really good in terms of showing that.
Thanks, David. One thing I would suggest as well, just to make and we know the time of year, we understand, and you know, you may have been looking at today's session and thinking, crikey, there's a whole lot it can do. We looked at the prospect of you being able to do, you know, your book study or whatever, or being able to systematically implement that. Doesn't have to be, if you assign them, it can be flexible. They could do it over the next 3 weeks. You know, but when they get some leadership management time, or you can show them how to do them quickly, and they can do it, or we can help you with that. The video should help with that. But the other thing you can do, if you just want to populate the gallery, just click and shoot. So there's 2 buttons up here on the gallery. So if you take your iPad in here, go to the gallery and say to your staff, and this is a suggestion. Say to your staff, you know, next week I'd like you to take 5 pictures. I'd like you to label it by subject, expected standard, area of study, and or send pupil premium, as well as any other characteristics or element. Just take 5, 10 minutes to talk to your staff and say, do that. They will all, as users, which is what I showed you at the beginning, they will all be able to come into the gallery and take pictures from the books. So at the very least, without getting the data and the analysis that we looked at on the dashboard, before the books go home, you'll be able to take those pictures and get them to populate them. And then, for example, if I'm the science lead, I can come in on Friday and I can key in science, and then I will be able to see all of the samples that have been submitted by the staff. So rather than having to go and find them, I can now see them. I mean, here we've got some practical learning. It's not all the work in books, is it? But you know, it's about being able to kind of help our colleagues to learn more. And cross reference, as David mentioned, if it's a pupil with SEND, we tag it as well, so our Senko can use that too. So lots of really good ways to be able to know your school better. That's what this is all about, because one of the things that I sort of learned and realized is I would stand in front of the whole staff and talk about standards in the classroom, but I was the only person who knew what they all looked like. I was the only person who had the freedom of being able to go from one class to another and see what it looked like in each year group. I knew every member of staff because I was there 12 years as a head in the same school. I knew the staff really well. So I knew, but I'm standing there talking about the expectations and then realizing that in actual fact, most of these staff have not had chance. They don't really know what everybody else does quite so well. You know, how many teachers in your school know what goes on in early years? It's that thing, isn't it? You know, your English and maths lead tend to be kind of year 5 and 6 quite often. And it's like, you know, the learning about early years. So submit, you know, samples, help them, you know, provide that for them and help them to build up that picture. And over time you can really work in that way. So, and again, with the guidance using the frameworks and things like that, it helps. Okay, so we've looked at lots of different, you know, lots that we can gain from doing the book study. Let's just move across and start thinking, just as we start to conclude things a little bit. So on the builder here, if you did want to change and edit it, so if you take our book study, which is the one we've looked at today, which is here down listed with a padlock on, if you wanted to create your own, then you can change it to our school book study, clone that one, and then up at the top, you can then edit the questions there. So you can edit and play around and amend that one ready to use if you want it to be different. I think ours is a fairly good sort of fit. It's fairly generic. It's simple and concise. And then, you know, anything else that you're creating in here, you can share as well. So if there's, you know, if you wanted to import and export and share it with another school, you can do that too, or you can import. Bearing in mind that the work study that I showed you, that's on Facebook. So I'll show you where that is in a minute, but you would need to import that. And that just click, and then you can pull that in. Then it will put it into that list, and you can even edit it as you go along. Okay, so as we start to move along, just a little bit more insight before we get back to the final slide and sort of conclude things really with a little bit of, excuse me, theory to take away. Not forgetting that we can change the statements if you want to do. The color schemes, those are all up to you, how you want to be able to use and apply them. We've got a very sort of clear philosophy. Tech support if you need it, or advice, because we've looked at this session. We've had quite a few questions down there, David. If you want to send us a message after the session and ask a question, you can do, and we'll share email addresses and things soon. But tech support, advice, arguably as well. User guide. There's some information in there about, you know, take a look at the user guide because it's really thorough, as well as having the framework in there. So the book study is actually in the user guide. So if you want to be able to get it out so that staff know what it looks like, so they've got a copy of it, you'll see it in there as well. Tutorials, we'll pop this one on the tutorials on the YouTube channel shortly so you can use it, but you will get the recording anyway. So heading across to the website just for a few extended, I'll just show you a couple of links here. David, do you just want to recap a few things before we get back to the slideshow and conclude the session? Just what we can access here and, you know, how we can learn more. There's things like training, communities, lots of things to help as well as a quick recap on the trial or
Yes,
demo.
we've got yeah, when you're on the website nautilus.education, you can see we've got the big iPad there, and underneath 2 key buttons there. There's the trial, which is a fully working trial. One thing just to add with the trial as well, there's no auto subscription and there is no credit card needed. So if you want to just have a go, full 30 days, you get full tech support. We'll help you along the way. Have a go. You can be set up and working on things very quickly. In fact, you'll be able to go and do that this afternoon and be cracking on having a go tomorrow if you want to. So do have a go on the 30-day trial risk-free. Myself and David, if you're not a Nautilus school and you've looked at this today and you're thinking, I won't mind taking this back to some decision makers or whoever it might be, David and I do offer some time with you as a SLT to go through, listen to your journey, to be able to show you some of the features which will that you've seen today, but also which will be applicable for you in your situation. You can book a demo there. Simply click on there. You can choose a date and a time. we'll be in touch with you with the rest of the information, joining information, etc.